the Senate to complete the job for them. Those lazy
House
of
again,
Representatives
a
members.
total crock. So what Ron Johnson would suggest that we, as a country, we cannot address these issues with the president. We cannot impeach him through our elected representatives, go through an impeachment process, because why? We got to wait for the courts to approve when we know, Don McGahn, when was that subpoena issued? April of last year? And that still has not yet been resolved. So,
you mean the
we're not
former
going to
White
wait.
House counsel?
Right. Yeah, just wait. Let's wait. So in the meantime, the president would be able to continue to sow the chaos that he has been doing, to play the games he has been, and Ron would have us sit around the courthouse waiting for the judiciary to make up their mind. Hell no, Ron. That's the point of the impeachment. Why don't you, sir, follow your oath, take a look at the facts, and then judge accordingly?
People listening right now anywhere on the Wisconsin Political Talk Network, and I'm in this case, I mean on 92.7 FM in Madison.
Yeah.
And shiny and new with now more power and FCC compliance, 101.7 FM in Milwaukee.
Woo-hoo.
It's up and running, baby.
Yeah.
So check us out. If you can hear us on the 101.7 signal, you go to the top of the list. But Dom, Ron Johnson goes to the top of my list with statements such as this one. I do quote, "The House was in a rush to do this impeachment," Johnson said, calling it a pretty sloppy job. Johnson's Democratic counterpart, U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin, Dem from Madison, slammed the trial in the Senate as lacking the necessary information for senators to make a determination on whether to remove Trump from office. Her quote, "Mitch McConnell's rules don't guarantee that we will have critical documents and relevant witnesses with firsthand knowledge about the president's actions abusing his power and obstructing Congress," Baldwin said on Twitter. Trump on Wednesday said he wants his top aides to testify. He'd really like them to, Dom, but suggested they were national security concerns to allowing their testimony. Trump is the subject of the impeachment. We know this, Dom, because of a couple of things he did, yada, yada, yada.
Boom. Next thing you know, you're impeached.
Back down to the Johnson quotes here in the article at the Madison.com. What I've seen from the House managers is that the current impeachment seems to be pretty thin gruel, Johnson told reporters Wednesday. I use that line occasionally. Ron, you're pretty thin gruel. I read on. When you talk about treason and bribery and other high crimes and misdemeanors, it really implies there has to be some kind of crime based on current law. That's not what the House managers are alleging whatsoever. They are putting the worst possible construction on what the president did. Dom, totally appropriate.
Well, okay, let's assume that's the case, Ron. The House managers they're biased, partisan. They're putting their spin on it. Oh, okay. Is it plausible that the spin that you call they're putting on it makes it seem really bad? If that were to be true, Ron, would you accept it? And one other point, Ron Johnson, who is, of course, the Senate chair of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, has subpoena power. And I would bet that the senator, if he were to subpoena some people and they just decided not to show up, he would himself would have an issue with that. So why do you not support the House and their subpoenas then, sir?
At this point, Dominic, what difference does it make? I read on from the piece at the Madison.com. Johnson said he wants the Senate to vote on whether to remove or convict the president rather than vote to quickly dismiss the trial. Republicans have said they don't have the votes for such a move. Johnson became embroiled in Trump's impeachment saga early on. Yeah, I would say they mentioned his name, 7 times yesterday in succession?
I heard at least one more today, perhaps more.
This fall, Johnson admitted he had learned of a possible quid pro quo involving Trump and a top U.S. official, but that the president had denied it to him. And Dom, I'm just as an aside. I mean, Ron was genuinely concerned. He expressed that to us. He expressed that to the Wall Street Journal. He expressed that to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said, "Who the F told you that?"
Right.
What, no quid pro quo? And Ron took that as Literal. So Trump said, no, I'm not guilty. Okay, he's not guilty. I read on. On Tuesday, Johnson reiterated that Trump's denial of a quid pro quo was believable, air quotes. Johnson defended the president, arguing that Trump's withholding military aid to Ukraine was rooted in his concerns over corruption. Dom, you recall, as Adam Schiff has pointed out more than once in the last couple days, in that July 25th phone call, the word corruption never came out of corrupt Donald Trump's mouth. It was just the Bidens and Burisma.
The big
call
things.
The attorney general and call Rudy. I read on. It was rooted in his concerns over corruption in Eastern European country and the lack of military support from Ukraine's neighbors. Despite Johnson's contact with the president and his aides regarding Ukraine, he waved them off, that he wouldn't be an impartial juror during the impeachment trial. One more time from Rojo. My firsthand knowledge makes me even more qualified to pass judgment on this. I have a completely different perspective on this. Front row to a cover-up, I would say, Ron. Johnson said he is committed to being impartial in the partisan impeachment process.
Well, he already told us the last time he came in studio, Crudy, that if those things were combined, right, the withholding of the aid, right,
that would be a problem.
That would be a problem. Yes, I would have a problem with that. Does he have a problem? Because I don't know. I'm not clear that the House has not made that case. Is Ron saying that that's not the case? I don't think. I don't know how you could.
Insider knowledge, Dom. He was there.
844-967.
A front row to history, Dom,
2789. He's front row. He's in it. He's knee deep in it. Let's get some callers. Betsy, you are up. Happy impeachment. Betsy, what do you got for us today?
Hey, Betsy.
Yes. Hey, you guys. Senator Johnson is like up to his. Oh, it's covering his head. I mean, really.
Call him front row Ron.
Oh my gosh. I tried calling him today, and they put me on hold, and I waited for over 20 minutes. I couldn't wait any longer, but they played Mozart the whole time. And then I called Tammy Baldwin, Senator Baldwin, and then I got through right away, and I got a person, and it was so nice. And I told her that, this is just a sham trial. This is just unbelievable. This is happening. That that there's corruption and the obstruction. And on I went. And so I got to really, put it out there that you can't even get a hold of Senator Johnson. He doesn't want to hear what any of us have to say. And I just wish he'd listen to his wife. He should stop being a senator and just go live a life. He's a millionaire. And this is just, so sad. And I mean it. If he runs again, we have to stop him.
Betsy,
just,
you know whose phone calls he generally takes? Dom's. Dom Booty calls the senator quite often.
That's not true, Betsy. And I don't know. I think the charm might be wearing off. I mean, Ron canceled he hasn't been on since what, October? He was supposed to be on a couple of weeks ago.
Quizzed him
and
before he went and battled with Chuck Todd that Sunday on the Meet the Press. Dom, first, he joined the Devil's Advocates for a long-form conversation in the Brady Street studios. And Betsy, quite frankly, thank you for your call, but I think we did a better job pinning Ron down than damn near anyone has before or since. Perhaps the greatest interview we've ever done on this show.
Winning awards here on the Devil's Advocates radio show.
I think it should be submitted for best interview of the year, Don.
Oh, maybe it was. 844-967-2789. Crudy, I found award. Major award. I found this one. You know who's been kind of leaning against Trump? Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox's own judge, has an op-ed out today. I want to get into this a little bit. Of course,
some Trumpian headwinds.
You can join us as well. Hey, the FM's up 101.7 in the Milwaukee market. Give us a
but
call.
no one knew before the AM turned off for the day, so we probably lost most of our FM listeners in Milwaukee.
Oh, come on. It's all over the social medias, man. Stay positive. Once again, 844-967-2789. Crudy, I sent you this one. I'll start it out. Judge Napolitano from Fox News. I don't blame President Trump for his angst and bitterness over his impeachment by the House of Representatives. In his mind, he's done nothing wrong and not acted outside the constitutional powers vested in him, and so his impeachment should not have come to pass. He believes that the president can legally extract personal concessions from the recipients of foreign aid, and he also believes that he can legally order his subpoenas to ignore he can legally order his subordinates to ignore congressional subpoenas. Hence his public denunciations of his Senate trial as a charade, a joke, and a hoax. His trial is not a charade or a joke or a hoax, writes Andrew Napolitano. It is deadly serious business based on well-established constitutional norms. The House of Representatives, in proceedings in which the president chose not to participate, impeached Trump for abuse of power and contempt of Congress. The abuse consists of his efforts to extract a personal political favor from the president of Ukraine as a precondition of the delivery of $391 million in military aid. The favor he wanted was an announcement of a Ukrainian investigation of former Vice President Joseph R. Biden and his son Hunter. The Government Accountability Office, a nonpartisan entity in the federal government that monitors how the Fed spends tax revenue, has concluded that Trump's request for a favor was a violation of law because only Congress can impose conditions on government expenditures. So, when the president did that, he usurped Congress's role and acted unlawfully.
No, you got it all wrong. Don't forget this president above the law.
But did he act criminally? Judge Napolitano questions. Is it constitutionally necessary for the House to point to a specific federal crime committed by the president in order to impeach him and trigger a Senate trial? The Constitution prescribes the basis for impeachment as treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. However, this use of the word crimes does not refer to violations of federal criminal statutes. It refers to behavior that is so destructive of the constitutional order that it is the moral equivalent of statutory crimes. For example, as others have suggested, Napolitano writes, if the president moved to Russia, then ran the executive branch from there, or if he announced that Roman Catholics were unfit for office, he would not have committed any crimes, yet surely these acts would be impeachable because when done by the president, they are the moral equivalent of crimes and are so far removed from constitutional norms as to be impeachable. In Trump's case, though the House chose delicately not to accuse the president of specific crimes, there is enough evidence here to do so. Federal election laws prescribe as criminal the mere solicitation of help for a political campaign from a foreign national or government. There is no dispute that Trump did this. In fact, the case for this is stronger now than it was when the House impeached him last year. Since then, more evidence, which Trump tried to suppress, has come to light. The evidence consists of administration officials' emails that were obtained by the media pursuant to a Freedom of Information Act. Those emails demonstrate conclusively that Trump ordered a halt on the release of the $391 million within minutes of his favor request, and the aid sat undistributed until the congressional pressure became too much for Trump to bear. And Crudy, this implies two other crimes. One is bribery, the refusal to perform a government obligation until a thing of value is delivered. Whether the thing of value here, the announcement of a Ukrainian investigation of the Bidens, arrives or not, the other is contempt of Congress.
I bet you thought I was going to pick up right now. You're going to have to give me a minute.
All right.
If the request for the announcement of an investigation of the Bidens manifested nothing wrong, as Trump has claimed, why did he whisper it in secret rather than order it of the Department of Justice?
Right.
When the House Select Committee on Intelligence sought the emails unearthed by the press and then sought testimony from their authors, Trump thumbed his nose at the House instead of complying with the House subpoenas or challenging them in court. Trump's folks threw them in a drawer. Earlier this week, the lawyers argued that those actions were lawful and that they imposed a burden on the House to seek the aid of the courts in enforcing House subpoenas. Such an argument puts the cart before the horse. Under the Constitution, the House has the sole power of impeachment. The House does not need the approval of the judiciary to obtain evidence of impeachable offenses from the executive branch officials. I read on from Judge Napolitano at the Boxy News, Dom. We know that the obstruction of Congress is a crime, just as former New York Yankees pitching great Roger Clemens, who was tried for it and acquitted. We also know that obstruction of Congress by ordering subordinates not to comply with House impeachment subpoenas is an impeachable offense. We know that because the House Judiciary Committee voted to charge President Nixon with obstruction of Congress when he refused to comply with subpoenas, and the full House voted for an article of impeachment against President Clinton when he refused to surrender subpoenaed evidence. So where's this leave us? It leaves us with a fine new guest live in studio. Maggie Dawn of the Resistance. I don't know if you're getting a show tonight, Maggie. This might be your only opportunity. Let's talk some smart lawyerly stuff. How's the impeachment going
Maggie.
so far?
It's painful. That's
painful in what regard?
That's my expert take. It's painful. Painful in this regard. Lies and the lying liars that tell them. It's so depressing. I mean, here you have the House Dems, the House managers, putting on what I would call, particularly Schiff, and who's the woman, the blonde lady, like a clinic. You know, it is a methodical presentation. I thought rhetorically what Schiff was doing, where he would pause and say, well, wouldn't we all want to see that email or talk to that? Right. I sure would. Well, hey, yeah. we can see it. Just ask. You know, what's depressing to me about it is that we pay attention, the blogosphere pays attention, but about 90% of Trump voters don't. And it's really sad. The issues that this impeachment trial are about are central to our democracy.
Maggie, is it good that some of this has been pushed into prime time? People can get home, eat their dinner, and watch the Senate impeachment trial.
Right, well, dessert for us.
Yeah, I was sort of mystified by the time schedule. I mean, setting aside the hey, let's just run this thing 24 hours a day and the senators can never go to the bathroom or leave their seats, and then they still do, and it's all very weird.
Under pain of imprisonment.
Right, which isn't going to happen. And the cubbies for the cell phones and the no talking and the no passing documents. Rand Paul doodling all day long. This is all very strange, of course, right? I forget what your question was. I just start ranting, and then I can't remember what the heck I was going to say. What did you ask me? What was painful about it? The not listening part is painful. And it's sort of, too bad there's not an Uber court, right? So that we could indict the entire Senate for obstruction of Congress, or at least the Republicans in the Senate for obstruction. They're co-conspirators now, the whole lot of them. I don't know what else
Maggie,
to say.
we don't know that yet. They could still, I mean, let's not hold our breath, but they could still allow evidence and witnesses. I mean, there's still some glimmer. It's like 1 in a million, but it could happen.
Well, this witness trading. Oh, now Trump, what are the Democrats afraid of? We're not afraid of anything. We just understand the concept of relevance. If you want to convene a bunch of hearings about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, go ahead and do that. But that's not what this is about.
How about probable cause and then indict them for the Justice Department? If you think there's something wrong, then knock yourself out. As they've been saying during the testimony, why go through these back channels? As Napolitano says, why whisper about it? Why not scream it from the rooftops?
Absolutely. Well, this gets back to the whole point. If it was legit, you wouldn't ask Ukraine to do it. Right. You just ask your patsy, the right-hand man, our esteemed attorney general, who's your hatchet guy, who clearly will do whatever Trump wants. If there was actually there, you wouldn't need to ask Ukraine. I mean, the whole thing comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
So,
Maggie,
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sister. I was going to say we've seen 2 days in counting of the Dem House impeachment managers, and as you noted, they've been thoughtful. They've been articulate. They've laid out a methodical case against the president. And perhaps the Republicans paying attention. What about the American people? I know you weren't a big advocate for impeachment, but are the American people, are they now paying attention? This has more gravity, I would say, than the earlier House impeachment inquiry.
Oh, 1,000%, Mike. And you put your finger right on it. Boy, it's hard to shed reputations that you get early on. Early on, I opposed impeachment related to Russian interference. I just didn't think Mueller was sort of, I want to say something kind of untoward. It was a big build up for nothing, right? He made a terrible witness before Congress. But I was very clear that after this came out, literally in the days following the release of the whistleblower complaint, I said, now we should impeach him. This to me was so very clear. And at the end of the day, you can't put lipstick on this pig. You just can't. They can distract, they can call it partisan. But the guy extorted Ukraine, illegally withheld aid. It was very clear. It was an orchestrated hit job on a political rival. He extorted a foreign power that is an ally to the benefit of Russia.
Right. Let's not forget to the benefit of Russia. And I think that seemingly gets blown over here because a lot of things that this president has done since before he became president, certainly as president, has been for the benefit of Russia.
And one has to wonder why. I mean... It just can't be that Donald Trump is a complete and total moron. That's not the answer. Why is he so in love with Putin?
Yeah, it could be.
But it's just, I mean,
Matt
even
Flynn
with,
thinks it's compromising videos.
I
think
totally
it's probably
agree.
money laundering.
I think Putin has some dirt on Joe Biden. And remember, my watchword and guide
You mean Trump.
Yes, I'm
yeah.
sorry. And this is why the misspeak. My watchword and guide to everyone about all things Trump and Republicans today is that it is gaslighting and projection. So everything that they accuse Democrats of, they're doing 10 times worse. And so too here, right? The answer to why Trump is Putin's guy is that Putin has compromising information on Trump. Do you think it could be that he was maybe, trying to bribe Putin, some sort of influence peddling, some compromising videos? In other words, all of the stuff that Trump is saying about the Bidens is probably something that he himself is guilty of vis-a-vis Russia. Am I totally speculating? Of course I am, but that's what we do on the radio.
But there's lots of things out there. This information continues to come out
Well,
from
there was
Deutsche
that
Bank.
public hand job in Helsinki.
I don't know why he would. But I mean, if it is shown that this VT Bank and Gazprom Bank and essentially underwritten the loans at Deutsche Bank to Donald Trump, I mean, and we haven't had this information. There's still more out there yet. And I think one of the best plays the managers have been saying is this is all going to come out. Someone's going to write a book. Someone's going to star in a movie. Someone's going to do this.
This
You
is made
cannot hide
for
this.
movies,
Oh,
made
absolutely.
for Hollywood.
And as the court cases continue, as Lev Parnas and other players continue to come forward, it's not going to get any better for the Republican senators. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. This is their historical test, and the whole lot of them. I don't care if Susan Collins finds her way to a rational thought. You have been a co-conspirator with an evidently and obviously corrupt presidency that is highly illegitimate. And I do want to take a pause on the point that Dom was just making, which is, if you remember the Panama Papers?
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. The rot that happens with people that have businesses like Donald Trump's, right? Real estate globally is a corrupt business, okay? Is everyone that is in the business corrupt? No. And I just made that point for you, Mike. Not everyone that participates in the real estate market
Well, it's very
is corrupt.
open for money laundering.
Yes, it's perfect for that. And if you don't remember the Panama Papers, effectively, the largest leak of data that has ever happened in world history was the leak of these, I think it was nearly 3 terabytes of data from this but previous to this scandal, totally unheard of law firm in Panama. The law firm's name was Mossack Fonseca. And all this law firm did was set up and basically shell entities globally so that drug kingpins, Putin and his cronies, I'm going to throw the Trumps in there, the president of Iceland, Argentina, all of these political bigwigs, all of the corrupt leaders in Africa could basically wash money that they had extorted or gotten through illegal gains. Now, was every single one of Mossack Fonseca's clients corrupt? No. But this is the fine line between tax avoidance and tax evasion, which is a crime. And why am I down this big rabbit hole? There was one Mossack Fonseca that came out in the Panama Papers. There are hundreds of these law firms globally. And when you think about what is the dirt that Putin might have on Trump, do you think Putin has his eyes into every single Russian law firm? You bet. right? They wouldn't be allowed to operate otherwise. So do I think something like this that starts to look like money laundering, extortion, illegal bribery? There's this thing that we have in the United States. It's called the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act.
And that's got to go away, according to Donald Trump.
Of course it does. Why? And this all gets us back to the same point, right, guys? The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is a per se ban on U.S.-based businesses and U.S. citizens bribing foreign governments.
Yeah, but that's how they do it over there. That's their culture. Who am I to judge?
So what do I, where there's smoke, there's fire. Everything
When
that
in Rome, bribe the Romans, if you will.
Or pick up a fiddle and join Nero as the city
it
burns.
burns to
Thank
the
you, Senate
ground.
Republicans. But all of this is sort of, you can start to see the superstructure. And I've worked long enough in both political and huge law firms and globally to know most people don't see the matrix. They don't even know that the matrix is there, if you get what I'm saying. There is simply a different set of operating principles and rules for people at this level of wealth and for corrupt public officials at this level of corruption. What we're seeing with the Ukraine extortion is it is like literally a tip of this rotten and corrupt infrastructure. Don't even get me started on Cambridge Analytica because it's all part of the same garbage.
But doesn't that make it even more discerning that we have right now through this constitutional republic, through our representatives, through the House of Representatives that know this? We know this, even though all the administration has been hiding and stonewalling and not letting people come forward, not letting documents come forward. We know this, and we're trying to use our government by the people, for the people, to address these issues, and we continue to come up against these. Come on. Billionaires have more in common with other billionaires than they do with the citizens of their home countries.
Of course. And listen, the whole point is if we
And
want...
that's why Maggie's voting for Bernie Sanders.
I'll just let the dead air speak for itself.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, special coverage of the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. The senators are at a bathroom break, going to get some food. Maggie Dawn is joining us. Actually, it's after 6. We are now joining Maggie Dawn. Thanks for joining us, Maggie.
This just in. Susan Collins takes hours to decide on lunch before ordering exactly what Mitch McConnell is having. It's courtesy of the Borowitz report, not the news.
Excellent.
Or the Onion. That sounds like an Onion headline.
Totally. What do you got, Curtis?
Sad but true.
Maggie, here's my question for you, our legal eagle. We know this is a foregone
It's not Jim
conclusion.
Santel today. I got to give you crap. Go ahead, Mike.
You
Sorry.
know this is a foregone conclusion, the Senate impeachment trial of Donald Trump. We know what the outcome will be.
I don't agree with that, but go ahead.
Well, I strongly suspect we know the outcome will be acquittal. But here's my question. Maggie, after the acquittal, then there's going to be smoking gun evidence because the man is guilty and corrupt. And the question becomes, is there an electoral payback for all these senators that would basically be co-conspirators in the after-the-fact cover-up? And they know he's guilty. We know he's guilty. Anybody watching knows he's freaking guilty, at least if they're watching with reasonableness and an open mind. They see the evidence. They suspect his guilt. So what happens when they acquit and then the real evidence of corruption and criminality comes out?
What happens is Maggie Dawn 2020 for Senate unseating Ron Johnson. I say that somewhat.
Got to wait till 2022 for Ron's seat.
Yeah, 2022. Excuse me. There in places like Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and other places where there are Republicans like Susan Collins and others who are vulnerable that the states are purple, and you can't gerrymander a statewide election. Thank you, Assembly Republicans here in Wisconsin. I think there will be. Aside from that, geez, if not this, then what is the call to conscience that a Republican senator needs? If it's not this, what is it? I understand the electoral pressure, but when do we look at each other and ourselves in the mirror and say, I have to make this beyond simply my desire to be a permanent politician for the rest of my life and get reelected ad nauseum. I have to actually do the right thing. That seems to be completely missing at least in some of the dialogue that I'm hearing. The only reason Susan Collins isn't ordering for lunch whatever Mitch McConnell tells her to order for lunch is because she's vulnerable. And isn't that sad? All of her over-perseverating over Kavanaugh simply to come out and vote for the guy. For shame. I just, literally, shameless. Like, that's what it is. Just shameless, raw, unabated, unadulterated, unprettied up political ambition. You sick, sick people.
Maggie,
as well as everybody that votes for him.
Maggie, you'll be eating Mother's meatloaf with 1 scoop of ice cream, but Dom and I, we get 2 scoops.
I love it.
844-967-2789. You can join us on the phones talking impeachment, talking politics.
Can I ask Maggie Dawn about something totally
off the wall? Yes, please.
Off the wall and completely different. You kind of broke a story, although you were coy about it, about the ballot issues on the Milwaukee County executive race. Theo Lipscomb brought to the attention of the Milwaukee, the panel in Milwaukee County, and brought it to the attention that someone had gathered votes for 3 different
signatures.
Candidates.
Yep.
First, it was David Crowley, and then apparently it was either Brian Kennedy and then Jim Sullivan. I'm not sure the second and third. I know David Crowley went first because his signatures were accepted and nobody else's were, and therefore, as we stand right now, 2 of the candidates have been thrown off the ballot. They have asked the judge to intercede. First and foremost,
you're welcome for the breaking news.
Well done.
Yeah, you should have broke it all the way for us.
I can't. I've got ethical obligations.
What's that?
Ethics.
Don't
have
ask
the
Mitch
Trumps
McConnell.
taught you nothing? Anything that garners good ratings, Maggie, it's worth it. But here's the question. Does this make Theo Lipscomb the bad guy?
I won't answer that question. What I will tell you is that elections law is incredibly complicated, and these issues are not very clear. What we've got tomorrow is the catfight in the courthouse ticking off at 2 p.m. That's when the hearing on who's going to make the ballot is going to happen before Judge Martin's. I will be there in my capacity as the lawyer for the Milwaukee County Clerk's office, which has the responsibility for printing the ballots. Right? We have to, eventually they have to get an order from the
And when
court.
do they go to print?
Wait, wasn't there already like a small run? What was the status on that?
So there has been a lot of misinformation flying around.
Enlighten us.
What I publicly advised the clerk's office today to do was to do nothing that would appear to a reasonable person to be a final determination as to who is on the ballot. In other words, we've got a hearing tomorrow. Let the court tell you what to do. You have real parties in interest, being candidates Kennedy, Sullivan, and Lipscomb. Mm-hmm. They have raised what is an issue, a legal question of first impression that this state has never addressed about how to reconcile 2 conflicting portions of our state elections law. The portion that Mike mentioned, which says you can't have the same person collect signatures for more than 1 candidate, and if they do, only the first candidate who had the collector collecting signatures, only those signatures count. And the other provision of election law in the state of Wisconsin that says all of these technical requirements should be interpreted as basically directory is the term of art, which means a suggestion, so long as the will of the electors, meaning the voters, can be clearly discerned. Here, there is no question that the actual signatures gathered, albeit by the same collector, were valid, right? And so the question is, which one of those provisions prevails? The rule that says you can't have more than 1 collector for more than 1 candidate, or the rule that says if we can understand the will of the electors, go with that?
All right, but let me ask you this.
Come on, give us the scoop. Which one will prevail, Maggie? Predict the future.
Flip a coin. I literally don't know.
Does the motivation matter? Why do we have a law that says you cannot have 1 person collecting for more than 1 candidate?
See, Dom, you should have gone to law school because...
I tried. They wouldn't let me in.
Couldn't pass the character and fitness exam, buddy. it's such a great point because the parties are arguing about the good faith of the candidates. What happens, and here's one of the sort of technical, sort of quirky things that I think a lot of lay people don't know, is when candidates collect signatures, there's a hard stop deadline for that. Even if you get your signatures done like weeks in advance, no one turns them in until the last possible second. Why, you might ask? Because they want to give their opponents the least amount of time
To scrutinize
to
them.
scrutinize the signatures, right? So basically, it's like a rush to the clerk's house in the 11-hour and 59th minute. They all turn them in. So as a practical point, each of the Sullivan and Kennedy campaigns are arguing there was nothing within the campaign's control to vet whether or not the same person had collected for more than one candidate, because you can't see the signature pages of the other candidates until the deadline has passed. So it's quite the conundrum. Candidate Lipscomb's response to that argument was, well, collect more signatures from various collectors or don't use these subcontractors. Notably absent from all of the public reporting on this is the guy that owns the business that they hired to do these signature gathering. Yeah, he's not giving. I bet maybe he's in Panama with
really?
Mossack Finesca. Just literally radio silence. Everybody's been trying to get this guy on the horn.
Are we
No
talking about
such luck.
Gerald Jones or some contractor? Because how is WNOV involved in all of this?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I don't want to get too far into the weeds of what's all going on here, but the short form, and I'm going to blank on the guy's name, but there's a gentleman, it's not Gerald Jones, that owns the businesses that were contracted, or the business that was contracted by the Sullivan campaign, and then he subcontracted to another business, and they all used the same signature gatherers. So really wonky. Cat fight in the courthouse.
How
tomorrow,
many
2 p.m.
signatures are required to get
2,000.
2,000.
I mean, it doesn't sound like, oh God, but when you start knocking doors and going places to get people to sign those, which I've done, I bet you guys have done.
And
that
you have
too.
a window to get
You
it
got
done.
only a limited period of time. It's cold as heck. It's in the winter time for these spring elections. It ain't fun.
So choose your partners wisely.
Well, and that's candidate Lipscomb's argument. Get more of them, or just use family and friends.
I don't. And then Crudy asked the question, is Lipscomb the bad guy on this? I mean, if I was running against him and I saw that they did something that is blatantly against what the rules that we all engaged in, we can go online and read what it says. I mean, I would bring it up as well. I mean, hell, I'm running against a bunch of people. If I can get 2 of them off, to hell with them.
Yeah,
if I got to live by these rules, so do they.
The arguments pro-con are deep on both sides of this question, right? And again, candidate Lipscomb, as Dom is pointing out, is rightly saying, listen, guys, I did it right. Everybody else did it right. And I'm sorry, I think politics is a thing that most people play to win, not to be nice about. It's bloody business. Just for some historical context, people say, oh, well, good Democrats would never do that. Aha, historical fact for you. Obama's very first election win, he took out a long-time state senator in Illinois who was attempting to run for the U.S. House of Representatives. She endorsed him. She ended up losing in the primary, so she wanted to go back and retake her Illinois state Senate seat. And she asked Obama to step down. He not only said no, when she put in her papers, it was Obama, this woman, and then 2 other known sort of system, Chicago-style Democratic Party Dems, all 4 of them. Obama's lawyers went into a room for about 3 days, scrutinized all their signatures, and they got all 3 of his potential opponents knocked off the ballot. So Obama's first election win, he won because he was the only one on the ballot for the Democratic
Doing it the
ticket.
Chicago way, baby. Now call it the Milwaukee County way.
Yeah, that's auspicious company, isn't it?
We are
so interesting.
Now in the midst of the Maggie Dawn Show, we are on the Wisconsin Political Talk Network, Talk 92.7 FM, Talk 101.7 FM in Milwaukee. And we got a caller holding, and he's a little angry. Apparently, we are interrupting his dinner break. It's Dick from Madison. Say hi to our friend Maggie Dawn.
Hey, Dick.
Oh, I'm not at all angry, except at myself for not listening to her show. She's awesome.
Thanks, Dick.
I have a question for you.
Go for it, sir.
I look at the culprit, the biggest culprit in all of this, as William Barr. And here's why. Way back in, April. He sits on the Mueller report for about a month, skews all the stuff that was in it and turns it into something it wasn't. And he seems to me to be the smartest of the group, which is scary. And he knows the ins and outs of how to play the game. And now here you are these months later when it finally, you get to this point, and the guy, he's so corrupt, I can't believe it. He's the head of the Justice Department of this country.
The head of the Injustice Department is what his
That's
new
what
moniker.
I would call it.
I totally
It's
agree with
scary.
you, Dick. And it's worse than that. When this Ukraine stuff started to come out after the whistleblower, don't forget that Bill Barr held a press conference and came out before all of the evidence was known and said, nothing to see here. This is totally fine. And again, I've contrasted this to what happened with Richard Nixon, where his attorney general stood up and pursued, with integrity, pursued the investigations against not just Richard Nixon, but also his crackerjack vice president. So it's a dark time. Listen, a good, smart lawyer is a powerful weapon. And Bill Barr is a good, smart lawyer who's very corrupt.
Maggie Dawn, I feel like we're intruding on your big show. I got to duck out. I'm Coach Crudy on Tuesday and Thursday nights. I got to go do some coaching. Kids are waiting for me. So I'll go jump in the car and turn on Talk 92.7 FM here in Madison. If you're in Milwaukee, Talk 101.7 FM will work. It's on the air. Tune in. The Maggie Dawn Show. Maybe she'll keep my little buddy around.
Oh, no.
I got to go, guys.
It's ready to go. Hakeem Jeffries, the impeachment manager, is now addressing the Senate. The impeachment trial begins. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Maggie Dawn.
Thanks, guys. Always good to be on with you.
Thanks,
White
Maggie.
House meeting that was vitally important to Ukraine